Well, now we're speaking to Barrie Trower, and it is Trower, isn't it?
Yes, ma'am.
And Barrie, you are a retired British military intelligence scientist, and for years and years and years, you worked in microwave and stealth warfare. What does that actually mean?
During the 1950s, and may I say, good afternoon, ma'am.
Good afternoon.
During the 1950s and 1960s, during the Cold War, it was realised by accident that microwaves could be used as stealth weapons against the Russians beamed the American embassy during the Cold War, and it gave everybody working in the embassy either cancer, breast cancers, leukemias, or whatever. And it was realised then that low-level microwaves were the perfect stealth weapon to be used on dissident groups around the world, because you could make dissident groups sick, give them cancer, change their mental outlook on life, without them even knowing they were being irradiated. And one of my particular tasks, I spent 11 years questioning captured spies. One of my particular tasks was to learn the particular frequencies of microwaves that they used on which particular victims, if I may use that word, and what the outcome was. Excuse me. And I built up a dossier. I'm probably the only person in the world with the complete list. I built up a dossier of what pulse frequencies of microwaves will cause what psychological or physiological damage to a person.
That's not covered under the Official Secrets Act or anything like that, is it?
To be honest, ma'am, I don't care about the Official Secrets Act. When I see what is going on in the world, through really ignorance, what I call ignorance, I think the Official Secrets Act goes by the board. They can do with me what they like. But I feel that it is my task to answer questions from governments, royalty, schools, anybody around the world. I tell them exactly what I know, exactly what I've done, so that governments and organisations and people can actually make safe levels.
Okay, so you did this work for 11 years, but
Yes,
but you've also been involved, obviously, in stealth warfare, microwave, and your particular expertise was on the impact of this radiation on health and brain functioning.
Absolutely.
And you debriefed microwave spies and dissidents and things, as you explained to us. So what are you doing here in South Africa?
I was asked to
stranded in South Africa,
stranded in
say.
South Africa. Well, not stranded until tomorrow. There's a very young lady who was sitting outside, organised a series of lectures and talks for. There's a little boy not far away with a tumour near a transmitter, and I was asked to go and see the little boy and discuss what I knew. His Majesty in Botswana asked me to give a conference or present a conference to his ministers on not only the health issues but the environmental impact to the animals. I'm doing a public talk this evening for anybody to turn up. So it's really the young lady taking me around. I have a series of interviews, lectures, newspaper articles. Anyone that really wants to know will just come and ask whatever questions they like to ask. So I'm here as a guest in what I think is the most beautiful country in the world, without a shadow of a doubt. And I'm being taken around and asked questions which I'm answering.
All right, so just remember the lines are open, 883-0702, and if someone is erecting, say, we're talking cell phone masts, aren't we?
Cell phone, ordinary cell phone masts and Wi-Fi.
Okay, and Wi-Fi in your office and...
Yep, and walkabout telephones, anything which emits microwaves.
Okay, so if you've got any questions, give us a call on 883-0702, and we've got an expert here, and he has got information that that very few people, I dare say, are privy to. So, what is electromagnetic radiation? Just explain. It's the same thing as microwaves. Is that correct?
The electromagnetic spectrum is a band that goes from gamma rays and X-rays at one end, the very high energy waves, and it comes down through visible light, which is also the same radiation, and then it goes through infrared, microwaves, TV and radio. Now, the only ones which really affect us in the communications industry are the microwaves. And microwaves have a special ability to interfere with water, which is how microwave ovens work. And we are made of water. All of our chemical and electrical signals involve water in the body somehow, electrical communications in the body. So the industry has picked the worst possible part of the electromagnetic spectrum to give to young children and to adults.
And here we're talking about cell phones, for instance. That's what you're talking about.
Cell phones, yes, ma'am.
So France, for instance, is saying that children should not be given mobile phones under the age of 14, for instance. The European Parliament voted by a large majority to recommend tighter safety standards, and this included Wi-Fi and whatever, but also protecting vulnerable groups like children, pregnant mums as well.
Absolutely, ma'am. Can I come back to your first point?
Yes.
I saw quite a large delegation from France a few years ago, and not just down to me, but they obviously took heed of what I said and went off and checked a few things. But we know now in France, I have it published, that they are pulling Wi-Fi out of every single French school on health grounds.
Now, presumably, they wouldn't have done that had they not known or maybe seen the results of Wi-Fi, because Wi-Fi has probably been in schools in France for, 10 years, or is that an exaggeration?
I don't know. The answer is I don't know how long Wi-Fi has been in French schools. I do know that they are spending now 174 million euros rewiring Wi-Fi sets with fibre optic cables or ordinary cables because of the risk to the health, mainly to young women. The health risk, and if you care to ask, I'll happily answer, the main risk from Wi-Fi is to young girls, and the main risk which we know to children is to the fetus or the infant. But children are much more vulnerable than adults. With this radiation, the smaller you are, the more you absorb. So the main risk is to young girls and the fetus or the infant.
And to young girls, are you talking about sterility, for instance?
No, ma'am. It's worse than that, I'm afraid. I don't want to scare your listeners, but I believe in the truth. If I have one of the research papers here. I have 3 research papers. I am a scientific advisor to 5 organisations, which part of my brief is I read international scientific papers, I retranslate them into a language that most people can understand, which is how I advise. Now, to answer your question, ma'am, I have 3 papers showing that low-level microwaves can interfere with the genetics in the ovarian follicles. Now, what that means in everyday language, different from boys, young girls, when they're born, they will have up to 400 eggs in their ovaries. The microwaves can damage the genetic structure, we now know, in those ovaries. So when this young girl grows up, gets married and has children, if she has a daughter, this particular mitochondrial genetic damage is irreparable. There is nothing at all that can repair it. So if she has a daughter, the daughter will carry that genetic deformity. And